McDaniel can't move on it. Now he does. The shot, passing down. Rebound, score!
Hi, welcome to the Toe and the Crease podcast, where we talk about anything and everything to do with the NHL. I'm SJ. That's the co-host WillyDubz right there.
Yo, hope everyone's doing well. It's great to be back once again. And hey, look, consistent uploads for once.
And we are kind of in the doldrums of the off season. Is that the right word? Doldrums? I think it is. It's like nothing's like we had the first wave of free agency. Nothing's really going on. There's a couple guys I think that are gonna be signed soon. It's just a matter of when. Like I really do think, for example, I really do think that like Max Pacioretty, Jack Roslovic, Matt Grzelcyk, like these guys, Victor Olofsson especially. Like, guys like that should be signed pretty soon, and it's kind of weird to me they haven't been signed yet. You know what I mean? So we're kind of waiting on that.
We'll definitely do a list on some of the guys that are remaining. I think you mentioned Roslovic, right? I don't remember. I'm sorry, I'm a little...
yeah. Roslovic, Pacioretty, Olofsson, Grzelcyk, who I've been beating that drum this entire offseason. Like, guys like that, I think... Yeah, and we'll discuss it for sure later. But because we're in the doldrums of the off season, one thing WillyDubz and I are big on is fantasy hockey, and sometimes we talk about it in our conversations. We'll hear like, oh, from a fantasy perspective, this is great, or he's great as a fantasy player, but as a real life player, maybe he's not as good, right? Or sometimes we'll be like, to put this in perspective, this is one of the greatest fantasy hockey seasons ever, kind of thing. And so what we decided to do, because, you know, we talk about fantasy hockey a lot. I've been partaking in fantasy hockey since I was, 15, 16, in different levels of seriousness, obviously. And I'd also want to say that, like, how long have you partaken in fantasy hockey for, would you say? Like, how many years?
I think just over 6, I'd say a little over 6 years now. Ironically, the first league I joined was your league. I think, to be honest, that's the only league I'm technically in. So, but okay, I mean, I'd like to think I've been competitive for the most part. I don't think I've missed the playoffs yet once. Hopefully, okay, I might have jinxed myself. Knock on wood. Hopefully, that doesn't happen this year.
But yeah, like, so. Anyways, we decided to also, to an extent, you know, bring whatever expertise we could, you know, on a variety of different things. Like, and one thing we're thinking about doing is like starting, not an introduction to fantasy hockey, but definitely doing fantasy hockey podcasts like once a week while we're going through the off season, and also potentially into the season as well. But during the off season, because there's just not as much to talk about, we're probably gonna do some ranking lists into the season, and then also kind of some beginner stuff. Like if you're new to fantasy hockey, you know, what do you look for? What should you do? Stuff like that, and just kind of like an overall, hey, here are the basic things I can do to at least just understand what to do. Because honestly, when I was first playing fantasy hockey and fantasy sports in general, that took like a year or 2 years to like figure out like, what do I need? How do I need to approach this? Because otherwise you just end up going into the league and blindly drafting players, and it never ends well when you do that, trust me.
I think for me, when doing fantasy sports, I think the one thing I had to learn was, in terms of waiver wire pickups, like who to pick up and why to pick them up, and like, I guess like when to pick them up too, right? I think in my first year I was just kind of grabbing guys at random. Like if I saw, I'll use fantasy baseball as an example, but I used to, I need a stream to start, I just picked a random guy on the waiver wire that was starting that day. Whereas I think now I'm definitely more methodical with it. I look at, you know, matchups, like obviously how they've been playing as of late. Like there's a lot more factors that go into who I pick up now, rather than just being like, oh look, this guy's available and he's starting today, yoink. Just an example for that. And I think hockey's the same thing too.
And it's one of those things, you're never gonna get it right 100%, but if you have a system and you have like a map of, or like if you're mapping out what you want to do, I'm not gonna say you're gonna win every.
You'll get it right more often than not, though. You'll get it right more often than not.
Yeah. And when I mean get it right, I mean do well in the regular season, because the playoffs are mostly a crapshoot, right? Like sometimes the weirdest stuff happens in head-to-head playoff leagues. Where I remember one year, one of the guys in our league we called him the 8th seed of destiny, because my friend Andrew, he beat the 1 seed, he beat the 2 seed, and he beat the 3 seed to win. And the way he won was the last week of the year, Cam Ward and Corey Schneider combined for, I think, 4 shutouts in 1 week.
That's crazy. I think I had
Or, like, I remember
where
I won a couple of years ago because Connor Hellebuck had, and he wasn't even great for most of the year, but that last week he had 2 shutouts, and it just carried me through, right?
And then the crapshoot too is I remember I think one year I got to the finals of the 8th seed, but that's because I think to recap what happened, the person I was playing had McKinnon and Grubauer. I think apparently the Avalanche team just got COVID that week, so they just missed they just missed 3 of their 4 games. And I think something weird happened where I think Shesterkin got played the Devils 4 times that week and got 3 shutouts or something absolutely ridiculous that normally wouldn't happen. And then I think somebody else's team got a bit of COVID luck in the semis too. And then eventually my luck ran out in the finals. I got curb stomped, but it was funny just to get to the finals given how bad my season was. So
yeah, and there's going to be weird things that happen, but the idea is just, again, what we want to do is kind of just provide a proof of concept, an idea of like, hey, I'm going to approach this, I'm going to do this, and the chips are going to fall where they may, but at least my process was good, even if maybe the outcomes may vary, right? And I think that's honestly how you should approach life, I think, right? As long as your process is good, if the outcomes are what they are, you can only control what you can control, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So today, what we decided to do was, this is kind of tentative because I think in the coming weeks we're gonna do more. Like we're gonna do our goalie rankings, our defense rankings, and our winger rankings. For right now, though, I just kind of want to talk about some stock up, like what we like to call stock up, stock down. It's guys who, based on off-season moves, might have increased in value, might have decreased in value. Now, this doesn't mean you're going to take these guys like in the early rounds. We'll kind of navigate what their value is to an extent. But they're guys who are higher or lower on my radar than they would have been if they had gone somewhere else or, a move hadn't been made.
Yep, that makes sense. All right. So I think I mean we have stock up, stock down, but I think there might even be some players that, despite their moves, I don't know if I would say like their stock didn't really change. I don't know if you had any guys that were kind of in that range. I might have had 1 or 2 guys within that range too. So maybe we can discuss it as we get.
We can kind of discuss it. Did you want to do it based on free agency moves, or did you just want to have like start talking about players kind of thing?
I think on my list I have a couple of free agents. I have a couple of guys that I guess were like they didn't move teams, but they were impacted by guys leaving too. So just I maybe have a list of roughly, I'm gonna say around 8 to 9 guys. Some of them might be the same as your list, but there's probably a few differences there. So we can kind of talk through as we go through each one.
Okay, well then how about we start with yours? Like, do you have who's your stock up, stock down? Just first off the top of your head.
I'll start with the stock up, and this one isn't particularly someone who's made a move in free agency. So stock up, I would say, is Yuri Kulich for the Buffalo Sabres. So
okay,
bit of an interesting one here, but given Buffalo's moves in the offseason so far, so for those who don't know, Peterka got traded to Utah, so that kind of freed up a spot in the I guess in the top for the top 6 forwards. And I guess given the circumstances with Tage Thompson, so for those who've had Tage Thompson, you've probably noticed that he doesn't win very many faceoffs for you. You'll probably look at his faceoff percentage. He's around 42-43%, which for a center is not particularly ideal. And he has had a history of playing on the right wing. And I think currently on Daily Faceoff, they do project him to play right wing. And I think Yuri Kulich will be playing first line center if that holds. And I could definitely see that happening given how bad Thompson's been at center, like I guess faceoff wise. So I could see Kulich and Thompson being on the same line. And I think Kulich's deployment too, this is, I think the key part is last year, I think he was line 2 PP2. And again, that's not particularly great value for anyone. I think most players you want has to be at least on PP1, and you'd hope they'd at least be on line 2 or line 1.
For people that don't know, that's power play 1. Like
power play 1,
and
then line 2, line 1 is like obviously first line, second line. So Kulich is currently projected to be line 1 and power play 1, which I think will be a massive boost to his value. And the last thing too is I would say he shoots enough for a guy that just had one full season in the league. So I think he averaged around roughly, I want to say a little over 2 shots a game, which I mean ideally you want a little bit more, but I think 2 is the bare minimum. So I could see his stock going up given that his 24 points last year came solely from even strength points.
Right. Did they ever mention why they moved did they ever mention why they moved like Thompson to the wing? Because he was your center for a while, right? That was like last year, but was there ever a
They
specific
haven't
reason
mentioned
why?
that, but my guess is I would have to guess it's the face-off issue, right? If you're only winning 41, 42%, 43% of your face-offs, I do think that's kind of an issue. Obviously, there's going to be some games where if they're desperate, they'll probably just throw him at center if they
It's
need
valid.
to on a
Yeah,
different line.
fair
But
enough.
I could see him starting the year at wing. If he doesn't, though, I think Coolidge still at least has line 2 and will get power play 1 because of the
No,
Paterka void.
for
So,
sure. Yeah, and again, and like the thing is, Buffalo, if they ever do badly, it's not because of lack of talent, and the talent pairing, like the grouping of players that he's playing with, whether it's Tage Thompson, Rasmus Dahlin, Zach Benson, like it's a good group of like again, when Buffalo does badly, it's almost mystifying because of how good their talent is, and that's how I kind of feel there with them to an extent. I don't know if you agree, but
yeah, there's talent there, but this team just. I don't know if you're a Sabres, if anyone's a Sabres fan here, but it's definitely got to be frustrating to watch this team at times, knowing the talent that's there.
no, for sure. All right, my first stock up. So this one's again, and this is if he sticks because Vegas does tend to move guys around a lot. My first one is Pavel Dorofeyev of the Vegas Golden Knights. So here's the thing, right? We all know Mitch Marner is one of the best passers. Say what you want about what he does in the playoffs. In the regular season, he's one of the best passers in the league. He's very good at like when he's in the corners finding you, and we've seen it the chemistry with Matthews and Marner. Sorry, we've seen the chemistry of Matthews and Marner when they play together. He's really good at getting in the corners and then finding you or streaking down the wing, finding you on transition, etc. Really good at that, right? One of the best passers in the league. Now, obviously Jack Eichel will benefit to an extent, but the other guy I think that's really going to benefit is Pavel Dorofeyev, because one thing this guy is a shooter, man. Like last year, he averaged 3.1 shots on goal per game with Vegas, and he put up 35 goals, right? And if you look at all his numbers last year, like average time on ice wasn't even that high. It was 16 minutes. Last year he had 35 goals. Shooting percentage was right around average, 13.8. But the guy shoots like heck. And honestly, on a line with Marner, that's a perfect fit. Because Marner will, if you're a guy that's willing to shoot unconsciously, Marner will set you up. There's no question.
And I think
it
works too because Marner doesn't shoot that much himself, so a lot of the
Right.
shots so he's not taking away any of Dorofeyev's shot output. Because if you brought in a guy that shot a little bit more, I could see Dorofeyev's shot going down a bit because you can't keep the spread across the whole. Like you can't keep the numbers the same and have another guy come on your line and shoot a bit more too, unless you just have the puck that much more than the other team. So.
Yeah, and he's going to be on right now tentatively scheduled for line 1, power play 1 on a Vegas team that's going to be really good. Last year he had 35 goals and he was moved all around on first line, second line, on varying lines. And if you look at the Vegas team in general, it's a high volume shooting team, but the individual guys don't shoot as much as you'd think. It's a lot of like multiple guys shooting kind of thing. Whereas and Dorofeyev's a guy that shoots a ton, and having him with Marner, I think. I'm not going to say he could be 40 goals because, again, I think the points might be a little bit of an issue because the passing game with him needs to be refined. But there is real strong potential. He can push for 40 goals, I think, with Marner, with Eichel, with steady deployment. And right now, I think he's valued in like the 75 to 100 range. I would have him a little bit higher. Like I think just because I don't think Yahoo has their rankings yet, but from what I'm seeing here, NHL.com did their top overall 200 for fantasy 2025-26. They have Dorofeyev at 74. Like there are guys above him like Dylan Holloway. There are guys like above him like Dylan Holloway who don't have the deployment that he does. And I would probably honestly, if you're just looking for a guy that's gonna shoot and score and put up goals, I would probably have him in that like top 60 range, given what he did last year with not the same level of deployment and having Marner, and if he's going to be on line 1, power play 1, I think Dorofeyev, like honestly in the first 5 rounds isn't a bad, like in the 4th, 5th, late 6th round is a great pick.
I think it depends on the type of league you're into. If you're in a points league, he definitely might have more value just because the goals like in the points leagues.
Even in head-to-head, like, goals are harder to come by. I know.
Yeah, but I think in the Cats leagues, though, he does suck that he doesn't give you any of the hits, blocks, or anything else.
Yeah.
Because there are guys
Fair.
like, you know, for example, like Tom Wilson, for
Brady,
example,
like,
won't score
Tom.
as much, but then gives you like a shit ton of hits and at least covers you for other categories, right? So it depends on which type of league you're in, but I think he's good, honestly, in any of the leagues. To be honest, there's not a league where I'd be like, I would hesitate to draft him, kind of thing. If I see
like, to me, if he's gonna shoot on volume, and we've talked about this in our previous conversations, like, shooting per player feels like it's going down almost.
It's gone down significantly, I've noticed, because I think there's. I'll pull up a prime example actually, because I mean I have this guy, so maybe this might be a bit of a cheat for me. But if I can pull this up really quickly, even someone such as David Pasternak here, I'll pull him up for a second. He obviously one of the guys that shoots takes the most amount of shots in the league. His shot totals in the past 3 years have gone from 407, 382 to 319. And I know it's still in the 300s for him, but even his are going down. So I do think that it's not just him, but the rest of the league is kind of trending down in terms of shots. Yeah.
So I really think that Dorofeyev, again, you know what you're getting. You're getting a guy who's going to shoot on volume and a guy that's going to score goals. It's just and here's the thing, there's upside too, right? Let's say he goes from 17 assists to, just by playing on first line and having steady deployment, let's say he goes from 17 to like 25 assists. And let's say he goes from 35 to 40 goals. Nothing unreasonable, right? Just maybe a couple more secondary assists here. You're talking about a guy that could get 40 goals and be around a 65-point player that you can get with high shooting volume, again, in like the 5th or 6th round. I think that's a really good player. And for me, the stock is up on him just because of how much Marner brings in terms of being a guy to set up a target man like that, basically.
I was gonna say too, like Vegas, they haven't really had a passer like Marner, right? One who's able to have that kind of vision and that kind of passing. Mm-hmm. So I do think that opens up a lot of options, especially for Dorofeyev, a guy who just shoots as much as he does.
Exactly. The other guy on Vegas, I thought that was a definite stock up. So it's kind of unfortunate because of the why, but Shea Theodore's stock up to me. Again, I know it sucks because Pietrangelo is out for the year, but there's no one really challenging him for Power Play 1 right now. People can say Hanifin, but last year.
No, but it's funny because I had this issue last year when I had him fantasy, but I think I did take Hanifin, and it was Theodore the whole year except for like the short 3 weeks where I think Hanifin was the one that was healthy and Theodore was hurt. Right. Apart from that, I think Theodore held down Power Play 1 the entire year, and now that Pietrangelo is not even there, then I think it's definitely Theodore's job to lose.
And again, he's the guy that's been there. He's basically been the guy that's been there since inception. They kind of always pair him. Either they'll pair him with Pietrangelo or they'll play him with like a guy like Braden McNabb who can cover for his defensive lapses here and there. But overall, I think you're talking about a guy, again, line 1, Power Play 1, definitive Power Play 1. Because one issue we had last year when going into the draft was who's going to be the Power Play 1 guy for Vegas? Is it going to be Hanifin? Is it going to be Pietrangelo? Is it going to be Theodore? All 3 were drafted. All 3 got a bit of run on the power play, but Vegas seems to favor Theodore. And I think unless he gets hurt, it's his the entire way. And if you're talking about a guy, again, a Power Play 1 QB, a guy who's going to put up points, like the peripherals, again, it's not going to be something like, it's not going to be like the elite defense with peripherals, but it's enough when you consider the production and where you're going to get him. I think for me, like, he's just an easy stock up with Pietrangelo's injury.
It's funny you mentioned Vegas because I'm going to actually mention, I'll briefly diverge from the stock up to mention a stock down actually. So I think stock down on Vegas is actually Mark Stone. So I think the big impact of this was Marner coming to Vegas because Stone was previously Power Play 1 and then Line 1. And I think with Marner now coming in, he's actually Power Play 2, Line 2 based on daily faceoff currently. And I think Stone as a whole, I think his game, even though he's only 32, between the injuries, again, he's never healthy. You might maybe get 60-ish games.
Yeah, that's the thing. I'm like, is Stone a stock down? Because are people drafting him? Like,
sure. I mean, a point per game guy, you don't just pass on, right? Surely that's not something again, he's point per game, but he has his issues, right? I think last year he didn't even average 2 shots on goal a game. I think he a little bit under, which is a little bit of an issue there. Again, he loses prime deployment on both the power play and line 1. No longer playing with Eichel. I think his deployment now is with
that's
Hurdle.
No, I see your
Hurdle's
point.
fine. Hurdle and Barbashev
Yeah.
is fine, but I think his production's going to dip a little bit. And again, with the injuries, he's probably just, I wouldn't say he's not worth drafting, but I'd draft him way lower than where he's
No,
probably
I see your point because Yahoo has him 110, and here are the guys they have him ahead of. Travis Konechny, which is crazy. I don't see an argument for that. I see what you mean, but like they have him ahead of guys like Marchenko, Konechny, Nuge. Yeah, I don't see it here. Yeah, no. Again, if he's off power, if he's on line 2, if Marner pushes him down off power play 1, and he's not giving you enough of the peripheral stats, I don't really see the argument in taking him unless it's like a later round pick for sure.
And maybe it's just me, but I'd rather take chances on upside guys. Like I see a couple guys like, so I'm looking at the top 100 fantasy forwards on NHL.com site. So they have him 88th, and I'd rather take a shot on the 89th guy. I'd rather take a shot on Will Smith. I'd rather take a shot on Quentin Byfield, even though again he's had slow development. Still rather take a shot on a younger guy. And I guess the one that kind of worries me is like Elias Pettersson's there. Like I'd rather just take a chance on that. Like I know it's been a rough couple years, but I'd rather just take the upside than a guy who's going to lose his deployment. And even though he's given steady and somewhat consistent production, he's also just been missing for parts of the year. And in fantasy, one of the best things in fantasy is how availability, and how often.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
The best ability is availability for sure. All right, moving on to the some other teams in the Pacific. Another stock up for me. This is kind of by default. John Klingberg. Okay, so I can talk about this a little bit as a Stars fan. Here's the argument for John Klingberg is there's nobody else right now. That's the argument. Here, look, man. Jake Wallman last year, if you play fantasy hockey, you picked up Jake Wallman. You got line 1, power play 1. Klingberg's not going to give you the peripherals Wallman did, but you get power play deployment from a guy who you just picked up off of waivers. And that's the argument here, right? And even though Wallman got traded, the argument was you got really good production for like half a year, and then you just move on.
It's the same. A bit more than half. I'd almost say like three-quarters, essentially three-quarters
sure.
of the year, right? So
yeah, fine. But the thing is, Klingberg, one thing he can do, and he's very limited at this point in his career, but he can quarterback a power play. He still has the mobility on the power play. He still has the passing, and you can see the visions there at times. Yes, he's a defensive liability at this point, absolutely. But that doesn't matter, right? Like, right now, he's scheduled to be on power play 1 with Macklin Celebrini, Tyler Toffoli, Will Smith, and Billy Eklund. And, like, that is crazy. Like, that is an up-and-coming team, and to be on that power play, he's worth, to me, like, a flyer as a fourth defenseman near the...
Yeah, probably one of your last few draft picks. Few fantasy picks. If you have him, take him. The only thing I would advise is if you're gonna take him, is maybe keep an eye on Shakir. Mukhamadulin. Just keep an eye on him because I think if let's say Klingberg does get traded at some point in the year, you might want to have Mook ready just so you have him just to kind of slot in because Mook is going to be a guy to take power play 1 if Klingberg gets traded at some point.
Right,
so,
but here's the thing: like you look at the rest of the team, Mario Ferraro, not a power play guy. Liljegren, they tried him last year;
they tried him and didn't work. I will say, it did not work.
It did. Orlov, not a power play guy.
Jack Thompson,
Mook, again, he might take it, but I think Klingberg breaks camp with the role unless like. And here's the thing: you take him as your fourth defenseman near the end of the draft. You get offensive upside, which is really like. Which is fine. Again, he's a fourth defenseman, or maybe take him as a fifth one and just have him on your roster. And if Mook or Sam Dickinson end up taking the role later in the year, fine, just cut it. But I think to start the year, the stock up has to be on him because prior to this he would have been undraftable or undrafted, right? And now I'll at least think about him in the later rounds as like, especially if you've kind of done your picks and you haven't picked a third or fourth defenseman. And you're kind of nearing the end of the draft, it's the perfect flyer to take because he's going to be on a really good power play, or at least a power play with really good potential, and he's going to be on a team with offensive talent, right? Again, they do have Celebrini, they do have Toffoli, they do have Smith, and if any of those guys also elevate their play from last year or make progressions, particularly Smith, Eklund, and Celebrini, there's just even more potential there, right? So... Again, he's someone I would look at as a stock up starting from the bottom, like undrafted, wouldn't even look at him. To now, I'm like, okay, there's something, there could be something there. Even if it's for half a season, fine. Because realistically, a lot of guys at the end of the draft, you're gonna get like you're probably churning through those guys anyway. If I can get power play 1 production, if say he's even at like 0.65 points per game for a 4th defenseman, that's fine. I'll take that.
That's fair. Speaking of the Sharks, I think another guy who kind of falls in the same category, by default, he's, I guess, stock up, is probably Yaroslav Askarov.
To quote The Simpsons, to quote Homer Simpson, woohoo! Default, the 2 best words in the English language. The 2 best.
Well, I mean, if you look at the net in San Jose right now, it's either Askarov or Nedeljkovic, or Alex Nedeljkovic, right? Nedeljkovic has been pretty much terrible ever since he left Carolina.
He's a backup.
He's a backup by default.
Yeah, he's
so
a backup.
Askarov's going to get the chance to start. I mean, he is their touted, goalie prospect, so they're going to give him the chance to run with it. I think
also, that was kind of why he agreed to go there, right?
Yeah, because he knew he was going to get a chance. Because I think the issue with in Nashville was once Saros signed the extension, he knew he wasn't really going to get a chance to play and be a starter in Nashville. So now he gets a chance to be a starter in San Jose. I do think he's one of those goalies that you could just take a stab on, like
a goalie 3, yeah,
goalie 3 exactly. Because there is a ton of upside there. Because again, he is a very touted goalie prospect. And I think in the few NHL games he has played, he hasn't actually looked out of place either. Yes, the competition, you could argue, a little bit questionable. I don't think he's played any team that's particularly strong. But at the same time, you'd rather him at least look decent against the weak teams, and then you can figure it out against the stronger teams, right? And I think with Askarov, again, young goalie prospect, you might as well just take a shot late in the draft, because I think a lot of the guys I'm looking at the goalie rankings here, like maybe towards the end. So guys like, for example, according to NHL.com's top 25 goalie rankings, there's a bunch of guys there like Vejmelka, Dostal, Kochkov, I guess even Swayman to an extent. Like, there's some guys there I'd be okay taking, but maybe someone like Swayman who's going to be on a worse team. Like, I maybe just take a shot on Askarov at that point. I'd rather just go for higher upside given kind of Swayman's end to last year. I guess Vejmelka's kind of tricky. Like, again, if you want a guy that gives you a lot of volume, sure. Again, everyone who knows Utah.
Slave labor starts, baby. Karel Vejmelka.
Starts. But
I guess my thing
last year.
So the way I look at Askarov is, one, he has the role. Like, Nedeljkovic isn't in their plans. They drafted Ravensburg, but he's going to take goalies, right? They're going to take a couple of years. Yeah. And if I look at where he's, like, if I look at thinking about where he's going to go, like, you're looking at right now that, that UPL, that Spencer Knight, that Sam Urson kind of, or like a backup goalie like a Joel Hofer kind of thing. And it's like, to me, San Jose's defense, I don't know how much better they're going to be, but the defense is improved. Say what you want, like signing Orlov, signing Klingberg, signing the guys that they signed. Like, again, I know they're not amazing on paper, but it's much improved over what they threw up last year, sadly, right?
And I think there's always one goalie each year who's on a bad team who just way outperforms, I guess, their draft ranking, right? I think last year was probably Dostal. I think this year it could be Askarov, if based on pure talent and at least having a somewhat better team around him. I don't know if you'd argue maybe Anaheim. I'd at least argue Anaheim's defense. Actually, I don't know. Would you?
No, I'd rather have Dostal. But if you're asking me about guys like I'm looking at the tier of guys that's like Tristan Jury,
I'm good.
but like Tristan Jury, the Sam Urson, the Spencer Knight, the Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen. Like, if I'm looking at guys like that, to me, I'd rather have Askarov over those guys. And to me, it's like, I'd rather take a chance on Askarov than even a guy like Kevin Lankinen or, like a guy like that who's a really high, or a Joel Hofer. Just because, again, you take the upside and you maybe take the volume, even if maybe the numbers initially might not be as pretty. I'd rather take a chance on that. So, like, to me, he's right now, because of the fact they didn't really sign anyone, he's kind of above the other goalies on bad teams that are unproven too, like Knight, Urson, etc., and above like the high-end backup goalies like a Lankinen, like maybe again like a Lankinen, like Joel Hofer, like Charlie Lindgren, guys like that. Yeah.
Yep. So if you see him near the end of the draft, I wouldn't hesitate to snatch him up.
For sure.
At least,
and
at
like
least
again,
at least given the options you listed.
I think if you take him as a goalie 3, you just bench him. Worst case, if it's starting, like, he's a guy you want to kind of pick your starts with, right? You're obviously not going to put him in against, like, Dallas and Colorado, but, like, if he's starting against, I don't know, Anaheim, sure, why not, right? You can pick and choose initially until you see, like, consistency about what he's going to be. And I think that's important.
Yep.
It's important to understand
what your expectations are. The only argument for ever taking one of those backups over Askarov would probably be if you have the other goalie in that tandem. So if you have Binghamton, maybe you just want to take over just to have both. I'm not maybe not the best example, but that would be the only example I would say if you would want to pass on Askarov, is if you have one of the other goalies in that tandem and you do kind of fear that maybe they might lose the job to the backup at some point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's gonna be interesting for sure. So we'll kind of go through the Pacific Division to an extent here. Another stock down. This is kind of a weird one, but it makes sense if you think about it. The entire Anaheim Ducks roster minus Lucas Dostal. I don't know who's gonna play what. Like, yes, McTavish is our second line center, but like, if you look at this roster, it's just a weird mishmash of guys, and it's so hard to predict. Like, Daily Faceoff basically doesn't know who's gonna be what right now. Like, they had Zellweger as power play 1, even though Lacombe was for most of the year last year. They have Carlson on line 1, but they don't have him on power play 1. They have McTavish, Granlund, and Kreider, right? And, like, the lines right now, because one, there's a couple issues here. One, it's a weird mishmash of parts because they got Kreider, and Kreider's, for example, going to be on a bounce back. They're hoping he bounces back, but really his value is as power in a power play role, right? So they have to play him on the power play. So that's one spot taken, and then you obviously have to have your power play 1 D-man, and then so that's another spot taken. Now you have to fit.
Probably one D-man is there's a bunch of guys that could play there, right? Like, and obviously you mentioned Lacombe played there last year. Zellweger has the talent, and funny enough, I would say even like Minchikov, right? He's again,
Yeah,
I think
he was
is
a top
10
lottery pick. Yeah,
he's a lottery pick, so like even he could play that. And the problem is with Anaheim, I know at points in the season, I know Lacombe obviously took a hold of that role at one point.
No, that defense was like trying to figure out their power play 1 defenseman for the most part was a nightmare because it was different
I think
players.
Lacombe had
it
for
points.
a decent part of the year once they at least chose. But I think there were parts of the year where at one point Zellweger had it. I remember because you had him in our league, you dropped him. I think Minchikov got it at one point. Someone else had him, and I think Lacombe eventually got it. And I think you picked up Lacombe. Then Lacombe lost it for a couple games, and then you dropped him. And I remember it was just
and if you remember, Cam Fowler had it for a bit until they traded him too.
Yeah, so it was just a complete mess. So I would honestly avoid drafting any Anaheim player. The only one I really give a shot to is McTavish. That's the only player I'd seriously think about from the Ducks, apart from Dostal.
It's just gonna be hard because like Kreider's gonna take 1 spot on power play 1. The D-man's gonna take another spot. Now you have 3 spots between Carlson, Gauthier, McTavish, Granlund, and Troy Terry. And Troy Terry was their best forward last year. And not to mention right now they have a new coach coming in, Joel Quenneville, who's gonna kind of do his own thing. Like, if you want to pick someone, maybe pick Carlson or McTavish. But outside of that, like, I wouldn't pick. I'd wait to see how it shakes out. And like
I probably lean McTavish more than Carlson. I do think I don't know if this. I would assume the shooting numbers probably favor McTavish a bit more. And I do think he probably throws the body a bit more than Carlson. Like, and I think that based on numbers from last year, I probably would favor McTavish.
I'm just saying,
Carlson in that case.
You can take a stab on one of the guys. Maybe even if you're late, you can take a stab on Cutter Gauthier. But like, outside of that, I don't want to draft anybody on that team except Dostal. Like, Dostal would be the only other guy I'd want, because I don't know how any of this is going to shake out. At least right now. Once they break camp, it might be a little bit different. But for me right now, because of the uncertainty with the guys on the roster, new coach, and like, honestly, it's kind of weird. Like, their best player last year was Troy Terry as a forward. So it's like, if he's not even considered for power play 1 or power play 2, again, projections on Daily Faceoff, like, I'm really curious to see how this all shakes up. But for me right now, everybody on that roster minus Dostal is a stock down because we just don't know.
Well, I was also gonna joke too. Like, I don't think Peter Mrazek's gonna take over the starting role. If he does, I think it's time to roll out the tanks. Should you say?
Man, no, they traded Gibson for Dostal to be the guy. I don't want to see Peter Mrazek anywhere in the net except it's like and Dostal showed you he could. Yeah, that's the only time you should see him. Or like if he plays 30 and Dostal plays 50, like 50, 52, like that's fine. I think that's fine. But that's kind of one of the only, like, there's not really much for me to touch on otherwise with the Pacific. I don't think tentatively. I don't know. Did you have any other teams anyone you want to highlight there off the top of your head?
Or? The only one I'd be a little hesitant to maybe, like, I was maybe gonna go I guess you look at Vancouver a little bit because I think Filipino is one I would keep an eye on. I wouldn't say it's stock up or stock down necessarily. I would say a little bit stock up because I do think like him having line 2, probably being scheduled for line 2 and then having power play 1. I think him having that will just give him good value. I don't know if it's necessarily stock up because he did have that role for a bit last year.
Yeah,
but
that's why.
I would say more of just a keep, maybe not stock up, stock down, but just a guy to keep an eye on. If there's anybody in the Pacific you want to like target with a late pick, I'd say maybe that's one guy I'd throw a dart at, probably.
Yeah. The other one here, so okay, this one's gonna be kind of weird. So it's not a flyer pick, but people will think I'm like a total homer because everyone knows I love this guy. So Vince Dunn. Okay,
why would you say
here's the
homer?
thing.
I mean, it's not like he plays on your like.
Homer is in like people know I'm such a Vince Dunn fan. Like people know, right? And here's the thing. So if you remember Noah Dobson's tenure with the Islanders, Noah Dobson's peak was under Lane Lambert, right? And if you remember, he was almost near a point per game under Lane Lambert until Lane Lambert got fired and Patrick Waugh came in.
And ruined absolutely everything, yes.
So my other thing, too, is when you look at what he had Dobson doing, where he basically gave Dobson, like, a lot of command and control over being the catalyst on the Islanders' offense, there's real potential that, again, I'm leaning towards it being Vince Dunn because I think Vince Dunn's just better than Brandon Montour, but if it's going to be Vince Dunn, I think there's real potential for Vince Dunn to be, because right now, if you look at it, Yahoo has him for fantasy defense. Sorry, not Yahoo. NHL.com has him for fantasy defenseman. They have him ranked 30, which is crazy to me. Like, I think Vince Dunn could honestly be, this is one of my hot takes, I think he could be, if he is able to unlock himself the same way Dobson did that one year, you're looking at a potential, honestly, top 10, top 12 defenseman in fantasy easily. Like, if you look at his numbers generally, the shooting can be a little bit better, yes. But again, if you look at Dobson's numbers under Lambert, like the shooting was higher, right? And it's a guy who's gonna block a little bit. He's gonna facilitate. He's gonna have to be the catalyst because Seattle doesn't have a lot of other offensive talent to do it besides really him or Montour, frankly. So I think there's real potential Dunn could be a top 10, top 12 fantasy defenseman. And like, again, NHL.com, and I know their rankings are a little bit skewed, but NHL.com has him behind guys like Neil Pionk, Shane Gostisbehere, Noah Dobson himself, which is, we'll talk about later, is crazy to me. And I think, honestly, there is the potential he could finish ahead of guys like, at least on a points basis, like, there's an argument for me he could finish ahead of guys like Heiskanen, again, obviously Dobson, guys like Lacombe, like guys like
Gostisbehere is a guy that's like ranked
Charlie McAvoy. He might not give you the peripherals, but I think as a third defenseman that's going to give you a little bit on the peripheral side and give you some production. I think he can really be that guy because if you look at his last 2 years, the point per game under, like, his point per game, I think was what, 0.78 1 year, yeah, 0.79. So with Seattle, basically 3 years ago 0.79, 2 years ago 0.78, last year 0.63, while basically sharing power play one with Brandon Montour off and on. I don't know. I just and overall it's in Seattle. He's been 0.67 points per game. Like, I just think he can take off.
My only concern with Dunn is that I know with Dobson and with the Islanders under Lambert, I did feel like the Islanders at least had like, I want to say like a tad bit more offensive talent, like just having a Barzal, like another offensive catalyst there. Because this Seattle team is bare as fuck. Like there is nobody
You don't believe in the Shane Wright, Eli Tolvanen, Mason Marchment third line there?
No. I don't honestly believe in any of the forwards on this team, apart from the only one I'd even give.
I love Jared McCann. So.
Jared McCann's the only one I think about. But even last year, he had his struggles, right? So even even their best, I guess their quote unquote best offensive player had their struggles, right? So that is my one concern with this team is I do wonder if Dunn's just gonna have to shoot the puck more and just kind of like score himself at this rate, because I don't think the rest of this team is gonna give him much offensive support.
Yeah. But yeah, that's kind of the only other one I had like really to talk about in the Pacific. I think there's other guys, but like it's not really as needle moving to me right now. But yeah, did you was there anyone from maybe another division you wanted to talk about, or was there anyone else you wanted to cover from the Pacific, or did you just want to move on?
No, not really. I tried looking at I was like I looked at the Kings briefly in Kuzmenko, but I wouldn't call that stock up. I feel like that's just more of a flyer that's more
continuation
of a
from last year too.
Yeah. Did he get power last year? I thought they booted him off.
Yeah, he did near the end of the year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, near the end. Okay, so I thought they booted him off at one point, which does sound like the Kings, to be fair.
Off and on, right? Comes and it goes. It comes and it goes. All right. What? You can next player you want to talk about? Stock up, stock down.
I guess maybe. Okay, so I have. Let me just pull up here. Yeah, maybe we'll move over to the Eastern Conference for a bit, and we can actually go to the Metro
just
for a little bit.
On the East Side. Yeah. Sorry.
Man, if you actually listen, I don't know if you ever listen to that song. It's
depressing as fuck, right?
No, it's depressing as fuck. If you, as a guy who grew up listening to it, you never really paid too much attention to the lyrics. But then once you actually listen to it closely, you're like, man.
Number one song that's like that, Pumped Up Kicks by Foster the People. I remember I used to jam out to that song all the time.
And then
it turns out it's about school shootings.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you listen to the lyrics, yeah, you can tell. But if you're not paying attention to the lyrics, you're just like, oh, this is a. Because
I remember just being like, all the other kids with the pumped up kicks used to run, outrun. Like, I'm like, oh, I remember the girl I was seeing at the time was like, realize that's about school shootings, right? And I'm like, I had to I had to put it on and re-listen to it. And I was like, oh shit, it is.
Did that ruin the song for you or
no? I always thought it was an awesome walkout song, but then that ruined that. But
okay, yeah, don't walk out to that.
You can't walk out to that. But overall, no, it did ruin the song to me. Just put a different light on it, I would say.
I was gonna joke if you're talking about like a walk-up song in terms of baseball. Like most of the games are gonna be in America. Probably not the best place to have that as your song.
Oh, 100%.
Especially when they have an issue with that. Like maybe you could do it in Canada, I guess, because like we don't have this. I guess we don't have that as an issue as much. But yeah. Anyways, so on to the Metro, I guess. The first stock up I'd say is on Carolina. I'd go with Nikolai Ehlers. So I know we might have discussed this briefly, like between ourselves when we were getting pizza at one point. But I do think Ehlers getting his deployment improving. I think he's now line 1 power play 1 versus line 2 power play 1 that he had in Winnipeg. So I think that's improved there. His time on ice should theoretically improve too. I think he averaged roughly 17 minutes in Winnipeg, and I think I did have a look. Like Aho was playing around 20 minutes for Carolina, so if Ehlers theoretically is on Aho's line, I kind of expect him to get the same or similar-ish ice time. So that increase in ice time should help. I just think like the improved deployment should I wouldn't say increase his production, but I could theoretically see an increase in production for Ehlers, right? Especially on a team that just doesn't have that much offensive talent.
Yeah, 100%. Also, Foster the People will love this. He's the best shooter on the team. Like,
well, yeah, I was gonna say they don't have a lot of. No one on that team is a shooter.
He's the best natural goal scorer on the team. So, like, of course to me, like, how's his stock not up, right? Who else? Like he's gonna get, like you mentioned, he's gonna get more ice time most likely. Better deployment, and he's the best natural shooter on the team. And again,
Yeah,
Foster people probably like him. So, what? Yeah, 100% stock up. Like, it's just a better. Again, it might not be more conducive to maybe him winning a cup, but it's a better team situation, a better fantasy situation. So to me, when I look at Ehlers, and if I pull up where he's ranked, like, because the argument for Rantanen last year was the thing that hurt him was maybe in Carolina was like going from Bednar system where he's playing, in the mid 20 minutes per game to Brindamore's system, which was his minutes were a lot lower, so the production was a lot lesser, potentially. There's not that argument here because no matter what, even if he plays regular Carolina first line minutes, he'll still have more ice time than he did in Winnipeg anyway.
I think Ehlers' ranking based on the forwards. I actually looked at the forwards around him. I actually think I don't want to say it's fine for where he is. Like
I'd have him a little bit higher. Like as a winger who shoots the way he does, I'd have him higher than some of the other guys here. Like again,
I wouldn't put him above a guy like Marchenko though, right? I think Marchenko like had the breakout last year. I do believe in that.
I'd have him over guys like Velarde, guys like for me with Michkov, I get if you want to chase the upside, fine. But to me, if you want the safe floor, I'd take Ehlers. Again, above Dylan Holloway, above Hintz. I'd have him above Nyes because I don't think Nyes is gonna hit the ceiling that Ehlers does. So they're like
funny enough, he might be better than I would actually say Jarvis, like his own team.
Yeah, 100%. I think he's the best fantasy forward not named Aho on this team.
That's kind of depressing when you think about it. I do find it funny. This is maybe just me, but I do find it funny that Jarvis is ranked ahead of Aho. That kind of
no.
Yeah, it says Jarvis is 42nd and Aho's 45.
I like Jarvis, but it's a bit rocky.
Yeah. And I do think like Aho being a center, again, if you're playing in a Cats league, the face-off wins. His production is just always consistent, right? Whereas Jarvis is a little bit more. I don't want to say a little more rocky, but his production is a little bit more. I don't want to say skeptical. I'm a little more skeptical about his production than like Aho.
For sure. Example. But yeah, overall, I would have Ehlers higher. Just again, when we look at the profile, he's probably in talent-wise, he's the best shooter on the team. Has the best goal scoring ability on the team, and his deployment it's a massive upgrade from what it was last year. I know it's obvious because he was kind of one of the bells of the ball of free agency, but it is what it is. Moving on to another team.
On a random note, I guess for this one is if anybody was hoping for a breakout from a guy like Jackson Blake, that's probably not happening anymore. Because I would say, again, he didn't produce very much when he did get the deployment last year, but I would say even further stock down now that he doesn't even have the deployment anymore. So if anyone was looking to draft a young dude on that team, probably don't target him.
Yeah, 100%. All right, moving on to another team in the Metro. We're going to Long Island. The Islanders have a bunch of weird because they're kind of undergoing a rebuild. So a bunch of weird stock ups for me here. And again, this is similar to San Jose. It's a stock up because there's just nobody else. Okay. First stock up. Alexander Georgiev's favorite player, Tony DeAngelo. There's
I forgot about that locker room incident.
If there's any argument here, the argument of there's nobody else sometimes is the best argument. Legit in fantasy hockey, it works. And here's the thing. Let me read to you, again, assuming the Isles aren't going to play Matthew Schaefer as a 19-year-old in the NHL on one of the worst teams in the league, which I don't think they are. But here's the projected defense. Alexander Romanov, Adam Pellich, Ryan Pulock, Isaiah George, Scott Mayfield, and Tony DeAngelo. Who's unseating him as the number one power play option on that team? Please tell me.
Well, also I was gonna say too. I think DeAngelo had power play one when Dobson I think was hurt last year, right? So I think again he's the de facto number one choice obviously he had it last year, so by default he probably should have it again this year. And looking at that team, unless Matthew Schaefer, I guess, wins a spot right out of camp, and maybe they just want to give him the reins, sure. But I think DeAngelo at least starts with power play one, and if Schaefer does make the roster, maybe Schaefer takes it away from him later. But I think DeAngelo's a good guy to target as your fourth defenseman. Just take him as your fourth defenseman at that point.
Yeah, like, and if you look at while Dobson was out last year, um, like there were times where he had like a 5 game point streak. He had, I think, around 19 points in 30 something games too. And this is again being introduced to a new team basically out of the blue, and it's one of those things where he's gonna be line one, he's gonna be power play one. He's the only offensive defenseman on the team. So he's an automatic stock up. Now, where you take him, I think you take him as like, again, similar to Klingberg, I think you take him as like a third or fourth, maybe like if you kind of haven't drafted defense, maybe a third defenseman. But if you're just looking to fill out your roster as like a fourth defenseman, and I think he has the potential to be a .6 point per game guy with like decent shot volume. And honestly, for a fourth defenseman, again, I think it's fine. But I think his
I think it's actually crazy that he's ranked like he's not. I'm looking at the top 50 defenseman rankings. Like he's not even in the top 50, and some of the guys they actually suggest to consider too. He's not even on that list either. And I don't understand, for example, why you would want to. For example, why would I consider Mason Lowry over Tony DeAngelo? Right, like Lowry's not going to keep power play one with McAvoy coming back. Hannafin's on that list too. I wouldn't consider him over DeAngelo because Hannafin's not going to have power play one. Even guys like, for example, Hronik, he's not going to have power play one. Like, why would I consider him? Look, you love Bichelle as a player. You probably would still take DeAngelo in fantasy over him.
But here's the thing, right? Last year, 0.54 points per game, 2.17 shots on goal per game, 1.2 blocks while he was on the Isles. That plays in any league as a third or fourth defenseman usually. And again, now he's going to have power play one for most, or if not the entire year. And with those peripherals, I think there's a point. Again, if you're talking about 0.65 over 2 shots per game with over a block a game, that plays. That plays 100%. And unlike Klingberg, Tony DeAngelo is so toxic that you don't have to worry about him being traded because he definitely doesn't have the same market. So I would definitely look at him a lot higher as a stock up for me, just because, again, who else is there? Like, please, anyone that wants to throw out a name of like, unless Isaiah George has this magical tapped in talent that somebody like I don't know.
He's a third round pick from like 3 years ago. I doubt he just suddenly becomes that guy. Because my whole thing is, look, if you were gonna be that guy, you probably would have been drafted a lot earlier in whatever draft year you were in, right? So he's probably not that guy.
The other stock up for me, again, based on the there's nobody else rule, which again works a lot for the Isles, you know. Jonathan Drouin. Here's the thing. He hit the jackpot in terms of deployment. Basically goes to being line one, power play one on a team that's not going to be good. And again, there's nobody better on the wing. Like maybe Duclair has more natural talent, but like Patrick was showing you what he's thought of Anthony Duclair. And it's not.
I was gonna say, yeah, like it got to the point where Duclair had to take a freaking leave of absence from the team. So I'd have to assume Jonathan Drouin gets more run on power play one before Anthony Duclair ever does. And I think even when Duclair had power
question play was Drouin. No, Drouin wasn't there in Colorado when Wall was there. But the thing is, like, there's also some. So yes, he's not a big shooter, but you're not taking him as like in the early rounds. I'm talking about as a late round filler pick to get a guy who plays line one, power play one, who in limited time with Colorado wasn't horrible. Like Colorado, he had 0.71, 0.86 point per game. Like again, obviously he's playing with McKinnon and stuff, but not horrible production for a late round pick. And again, a guy who might not see anyone unseat him because Anders Lee is just not a good offensive player at this point. And Anthony Duclair, again, has been in Patrick Waugh's doghouse the entire year last year. I really think, unless like they move Shabanov or Holmstrom or Siplikov to that wing, I don't see anyone right now unseating him. And to me, again, a guy you can get late who will provide surplus value. And that's what you... And I'm, again, talking about this in an introductory video. One thing you need to find is when you draft guys is guys that, even if you cut them later, can provide you surplus value in spurts. And I don't think anyone's looking at Drouin right now. And I think he's a guy who, in the later rounds, can provide you surplus value for a bit, and then maybe you end up cutting him later, but while he's there, can provide decent point production.
That's fair. I mean, I think, again, that's funny because you joked about this before, but the argument of there's no one else It's usually a pretty good argument in fantasy.
It's a good argument. Hey, look, it works. It works sometimes. It works at a lot of points in life. Sometimes, you're the only one to apply to something, and it works. Sometimes that girl who's the last girl at the bar and is trying to go home with someone, suddenly she's the belle of the ball. Like, sometimes just being the only option available works in life, okay? For better or worse.
Okay, so maybe if we want to go to another stock up, I guess. I think we're in the Metro right now, right? We're currently still in the Metro.
Yeah.
So another stock up, I guess from the forward position, I'd probably say Alexis Lafreniere. I think
I was gonna say that too. Okay, yeah.
Guy finally gets his
power play one.
Finally gets line one. I mean that's the best you can probably hope for, right? Because again, he was drafted number 1 overall, so there's the draft pedigree there. Obviously he was touted. They did say he was one of the best prospects to come out of the queue.
Mm-hmm.
I guess.
Well, now there's no excuses, right?
Like this is
now
his
you have
chance. He has Panarin on his wing. He has Panarin on his wing to feed him the puck. And he's gonna get power play 1. He's gonna play with Miller, Panarin, Zibanejad, Fox. I mean, there's like absolutely zero excuses for him.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't say draft him high, but I think wherever his ADP is, I think take a shot on him, right? Because on that New York team with all that talent, I hate to say this, but surely it has to work out, right? With all that talent around him.
The only holdback on Lafreniere for me is he just doesn't shoot a lot, which is my only issue is he's like a power forward who doesn't shoot a lot. He hits a little bit, but he's not a high volume shooter. But yeah, if you're not taking him early rounds, I think there's a strong argument that he can definitely provide surplus value just with increased deployment.
Yeah. And I think
I do want him to shoot more because the 1 year he was at 0.75 points per game, he shot 2.65 shots per game, whereas every other year was below 2. If he can get to, he just needs to get to say 2.5. 2.5 and he provides surplus value. So yeah, I would definitely say it's stock up from now. And honestly, it's also, hey, it's your turn to prove it because there's no more excuses now. The argument was always, well, there are better players in slots. Now, you're the guy.
It's kind of crazy too. I think in a similar note, I guess maybe a stock down for the Rangers. I would probably say it's Vincent Trocheck. I mean, Trocheck had power play 1, was the guy that had power play 1 in that slot last year. He's still, at least currently on daily faceoff, he's projected to be center 1.
Well, Miller took the others. I could see him taking over for Zibanejad, but yeah.
But I'd say without power play 1, I don't think it's worth. I'm not gonna say it's not worth drafting Trocheck, but it's definitely not worth taking him where his ADP is because there's other guys in that slot where you could probably find another power play 1 kind of guy because the main quality for forward is do you have power play 1?
Yeah, and Trocheck's tricky because if JT Miller ends up playing with Panarin and Lafreniere, his value goes to the toilet.
Yeah, because at that point you're line 2 power play 2, and that's the absolute worst. Yeah. That's the worst one you can have, basically.
And the difference from being with Panarin and Lafreniere to being with Will Coyle and Mika Zibanejad,
yeah,
it's massive.
Especially, I would say, especially a declining Zibanejad too. Because this isn't the same Mika Zibanejad we've seen in years past.
I wouldn't mind taking Trocheck with a later round pick just as a flyer, but he's not going to go late, which is going to be a real issue. And early rounds I would just avoid him.
I think that's my issue is Trocheck is based on NHL.com's fantasy hockey forward rankings, he's ranked 78th, and there's a couple of guys for example I don't see how he's ranked above, for example, Andrei Svechnikov, right? Someone who, although he's going to be line 2, at least has power play 1 deployment, kind of the same along the similar lines Ryan Nugent-Hopkins. I don't know how he's ranked above Ryan Nugent-Hopkins. It's funny because he's ranked above Elias Pettersson, who's going to have line 1, power play 1 kind of deployment. Yes, I know Pettersson struggled, but I'd still rather take the guy with the deployment, right? It just doesn't make sense to me that he's ranked above some of those guys. Yeah,
no, for sure. Another stock up, the last one I think I have for the Metro, and this is the default rule.
Is it who I think it is?
Look, man, again, it is what it works. Jet Greaves, they didn't really sign a secondary goalie option. And say what you want about say what you want, like say what you want about the Provorov contract, but like adding Charlie Coyle, who can provide a bit of a defensive presence, like hopefully a healthy year of Boone Jenner also provides another defensive presence. And if they can get anything out of Matichuk, like the team should be a bit better defensively, especially second year in Dina Vason's system. And the key thing is they didn't go out of their way to trade or sign for a goalie. Like this is Mersleskins is not going to be. Mersleskins has been one of the worst goalies in the league since his rookie year. He is not going to be the starter. This is Jet Greaves' job. And if Jet Greaves is even 80%, 75% of what he was in that short stint, you could have a top 10 fantasy goalie. Legit.
I was gonna say, on a side note, it's like people don't really care about the advanced analytics in terms of fantasy, but I mean, in the 11 games Jet Greaves played, he had a 14.5 goal save above expected, so he was like a far better goalie than whatever Columbus had, because the rest of their goalies, Tarasov and Mersleskins, were just negative goal save above expected, right? So they're just
he's
goalies.
gonna get the run. He's their future in the system. He's 24. Like this is his time. It's a team. He fits right in the age range of the rest of the team for the most part anyway. Like, this is his time. And to me, honestly, here's my hot take. I think Jet Greaves finishes. I'm just going to say it now. I think Jet Greaves finishes in the top 12 for fantasy goalies this year. Like, I think there's the potential there. And it wouldn't surprise me. And, like, I wouldn't hesitate taking him as my number 2 goalie. Like, a number 2 easily. No question.
It's funny because there's some of the guys they have. So he's ranked as the 20. It's funny because NHL.com actually does have him ranked in the top 25 fantasy goalies. But there are some goalies there. For example, I would rather take him over even someone like Jordan Binghamton. Like Binghamton's just been super inconsistent over the last few years. I'd rather take a shot on Jet Greaves and just go for the upside than a guy like Binghamton. I mean, I guess Joseph Wool's there too. Like the problem is he kind of shares the net with Stolarz.
Yeah.
So you kind of have to have both Stolarz and Wool. At that point, rather just take Jet Greaves and not have to worry about fighting for both Wool and Stolarz, right? And it's kind of funny too.
Well,
I don't know if you know this. On a total side note, is like I guess you know how
there are some weird ones. Like why would I guess Saros has the track record, but like I'd rather take Jet Greaves over Yusei Saros. I would definitely take him over John Gibson. Obviously, Stuart Skinner.
Would you take him over Dostal? I know Dostal's the talent, but his team's even worse than. I feel like his team's even
worse.
Like
that's like Dostal. I think right now is proven more, but the Columbus is a better team, and that does matter. I'd honestly
I would say Columbus has one of the better offenses in the league, right? Despite how young their offense is, and like even if Greaves isn't super great, like he's gonna squeak out more wins than Dostal just because Columbus probably just scores more goals, right?
I also think with the exception of Stolarz, because when Stolarz plays, his volume is so elite. Like, sorry, when Stolarz plays, like the production is so elite, you can't ignore it.
But the problem is you need to get him in Wool. That's the thing.
No, but what I mean is, so except for him, like all these other goalies in platoons, like Kochekov and Anderson, give me Greaves over trying to figure that out. Because what always ends up happening is, unless you have a turn pick where you can grab both, somebody's going to end up with Kochekov and somebody's going to end up with Anderson. And that happens all the time. And I personally, one of my things I do not want to do is deal with that. Like, I don't want to deal with a split situation. Just give me the guy and I'll figure it out.
Yeah. I think, again, you always want to draft I wouldn't say the workhorse, but yeah, draft the guy that's going to be the workhorse rather than trying to draft these
get the chase volume. Yeah.
Also, with the Jet Greaves situation too, it's kind of funny how because I actually saw this post on Hockey Reddit a few months ago where somebody I'll read the post to you. Who the hell is this Jet Greaves dude? Bro is absolutely overpowered by the might of God himself. Why is this guy goaltending like Prime Price mixed with Vasilevsky?
Oh man, no, he was like Hasek. He was like Hasek and Tim Thomas did a fusion dance.
Motherfucker is a brick wall. Where does he come from? What the fucking absolutely gritty motherfucking fuck is happening? Why does the Jackets have the best goalie in history in their net for the past few games? So apparently the backstory about him is he was undrafted because he was too small. So I don't know if you can quickly convert for me 1.83 meters. If you can quickly convert that in feet.
Hold on.
For me,
I'm pretty sure does Fantasy Reference not have? Oh, they have it in. Oh, okay. What the hell? Man, people need to we need to be consistent. You know what I mean? Like.
So Jet Greaves is barely 6 feet, and like again, there's not very many goalies in the league. Most goalies are around 6'1", 6'2", 6'3", kind of at least like bigger, right? So I think what happened with him was he was undrafted, being too small. Apparently, he lost a season of development from COVID, and basically Columbus needed a goalie for their Traverse City tournament.
There was nobody
And
else.
No, his agent literally was like, "Hey, do you want to give him a try?" And they said, "Sure." He played the tournament, played 3 games. He earned an AHL contract. He was the third string for their AHL team. Then apparently their AHL team got hit by injuries to the point where he became the starter. He took over the Crease, and then apparently he got an NHL contract after that. I don't know. I'm kind of rooting for this guy, low key, just for how he got.
That's the way to go, baby. That's the way to go.
I guess we're to fight each other to draft him this year in fantasy, eh?
Maybe. You always play the board, but it's possible. Who knows? All right. I didn't really have anyone else to talk about tentatively in the Metro. Did you?
Metro-wise, no.
Okay. All right. We'll move to the Atlantic. That's your home province. Or sorry, not province, home division.
Province. Bro, I'm not in the Maritimes, bro. What the hell?
Yeah. Like Boston doesn't really have anyone that sticks out for me. I mean, Geeky was good last year when he played. We talked about
it's not a stock up for him, right? Because you're just kind of
Yeah.
like you're just gonna hope that his production doesn't fall at this point, right? That's kind of what's happening with Geeky.
So John, let's talk about John Gibson, because I think we need to settle on whether this is a stock up or stock down. So to me, he's on a better team. So logically, this should be a stock up, but he's also now in a tougher division. So
And also he's gonna split time. He's gonna split time with Talbot too. Like I don't think Detroit's holding on to Talbot just to, start Gibson majority of the games, right? So he's gonna get similar games played as. I think he's gonna get a similar kind of volume to last year, or maybe like a slightly more volume than last year.
I think it's going to be like a 55-45 with him being the guy versus Talbot for sure.
I feel like this is kind of the stock just kind of stays the same, slightly better team, but stronger division.
Okay.
Like it just kind of feels meh all around. Like nothing like kind of tilts the scales one way. Because there's issues on both sides.
Yeah, I just feel like he'll get more wins, and I think that that alone will increase his stock, if nothing else. Like wins are a stat.
He has better defense. I wanted to say he had better defensemen around him, but I don't like the fact that Ben Sherratt's on one pairing and Justin.
I mean, the team defense is definitely better.
The team defense is better, but I just don't like that there's individual defensemen that are bad
fair.
in each of the pairings.
But overall, I'd say slight stock up to Gibson. I still don't want to go out of my way to draft him, but if he falls to, fine. Slight stock up to John Gibson, just because I think he's gonna get. If you're talking about like volume stats, he's gonna get more wins than last year for sure. And I think he's going to get more saves. And I think that plays, right? The only issue with drafting John Gibson, I think you also have to take Cam Talbot potentially. And now you're allotting 2 roster spots to 2 goalies who are kind of mid on a team that's not that great, which is kind of an issue. Moving on to other teams in the Atlantic. So we'll talk about the Habs. Stock up Samuel Montembeault. So Samuel Montembeault has been like a real secret in the NHL in a way because people don't know how good he actually is. If you look at his last 2 years, Money Puck does their goal save above expected stat for people that don't know. Like Montembeault has been a pretty high performer based on that. Like if you look at the regular season last year, he was 4th in goal save above expected, and he played 62 games, right? 2023-24, again, kind of decent, which was 29th in the league. But if you remember how bad Montreal was that year, again, grading on a curve, pretty good. But last year he broke out, and he was arguably one of, if you're talking about production, he was one of the best goalies in the league. If you count volume plus advanced analytics, he was really good. And now they just added a guy who could be a number 1 defenseman on multiple teams in the league, who's now going to be on their second pairing. And the way Montreal's defense works now, where they have a capable puck-moving defenseman on every pairing, plus a decent defensive defenseman, although I'm not sure about Struble, but Caden Gooley and Carrier can at least defend decently. And also adding Bolduc gives them more physicality on offense as well, and another guy who's capable of playing 2 ways, potentially. I think, the upgrades are enough for me to vault Montembeault. I think Montembeault could finish as a top 8 goalie this year. or like be a cemented as maybe even top 5, top 6. It's not out of the realm.
Yeah, no, I agree with you for sure. And I think on the same topic with Montreal, would you say stock down on Noah Dobson just because of he's not going to have power?
Oh, 100%. We'll get to that in a sec. But like when I look at when I look at Montembeault, right? So again, we're using NHL.com. I know it's not great, but that's all we have right now, right? Like there are guys like Allmark, Gustafson.
Please explain to me how Jordan Binghamton's ahead of this guy. A guy who's
right. There's guys like Binnington, Anderson, Sorokin, Allmark, and I get the track record for Sorokin at least, but even Stolarz. Like, here's the thing. Last year, I get it. Stolarz was amazing, but he only played 34 games.
The problem is you also need a Joseph Wool. Like you need both.
Like
that's what I.
Montembeault played 62. Like that's one less. People don't understand how good he. Okay, fourth in goal save.
And Vasilevsky, right? I think one.
Exactly. He was one less start than Hellebuck and Vasilevsky, who are like the elite of the position, and fourth in goal save above expected on a not great defensive team. This team just now got better defensively. Like there's a real argument that he could be a top 6, top 7 goalie, and I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the rankings. Obviously, Hellebuck, Vasilevsky, Blackwood. Yeah, I could see him up there. There's a chance.
Again, I'm not saying it's for sure, but there's the potential for it when you account the volume as well. Like if he's going to play another 60 games, that has to give him an edge over guys like I love Stolarz. You know I'm a big fan of his, but if I get 62 games of Montembeault like versus 34 of Stolarz, I'm taking the 62 any day of the week. Allmark's just on a worse team. Like say what you want about Ottawa, I think Montreal's a better team. Anderson, not only does he have health issues, you're also talking about potentially time splitting. Again, Binnington's a roller coaster on his and Hofer's a good. And you
have to take Hofer too. You're gonna have to take Hofer too, which is kind of.
And Hofer's a good backup goalie. And like, if people are saying Montembeault's unproven, people forget. Like, I like Gustafson, and Gustafson was good last year, but everyone forgets how bad he was the year before. Like, Kemper, same thing. Good last year, horrible the year before in Washington. Like, there are arguments against the other guys as well. To me, it's like we're just kind of ignoring how good Montembeault is, which is weird. And again, it's a team that just added a guy to make their defense better.
I'm kind of shocked too because I even see like a name like a Dean Hill above him, and like Hill was on a far better team, but like way
worse numbers. Yeah,
worse numbers. Yeah, it's crazy that he's 18. Like there's no. Like, I'm shocked.
Like, granted, again, it's NHL.com. I don't know how serious we're supposed to take it, but they're the only rankings we kind of have to work with right now. And it's one of those things where I just don't understand. I just don't understand how. Like, I just don't understand what your argument would be for it, to be honest. I'm just curious where Dauber has him.
Do you have Dauber pulled up?
I'm looking at their... They don't. Okay, that's interesting. Because they don't have him. They don't have him ahead of like a guy like. So they rank track record a little bit higher. So like guys like Saros.
Because Montembeault is like he hasn't
played
as much volume as the other guys. So or at least like up until last year, right? So.
Exactly. So like okay, fair enough. Like that's fine. I'm okay with that a little bit. But to me, I just don't see the argument.
I think personally, we still have him higher than some of those guys there. Like we just don't. We'd rather take the upside and the volume.
So they have Montembeault. So granted, these are keeper. I think these are their. Let's see. These are keeper league goalie rankings. So again, a little bit different, but again, they have guys like Vejmelka, Allmark, Saros ahead of him as well. But which I just wouldn't. I just don't see the argument for it.
No, there's no shot.
And yeah, like ahead of him. I'm really stock up on. I'm a believer, like personally, so that might be a little bit biased, but I think he's really good.
No question: Who has him in our league?
I think Andrew does, which man,
he's gonna keeper him. I think that's his only goalie to keeper. Right?
He's a Habs fan too. He's a Habs fan.
Oh jeez, of course. Yeah. Is that why he kept? Is that why you traded Caulfield that year and he kept him? Probably.
Yeah. Okay. All right. The stock down, and you mentioned it, Noah Dobson. If he's not going to have power play 1, there's no point. Look, I love Dobson. And the thing is, in peripheral leagues, he still provides really good production. But this is Hudson's power play. Hudson
he's not gonna take over a Hudson spot. Like you saw the way like Lane Hudson played last year. Just
I don't
dynamic offensive.
And I don't think that like the way Montreal lines up their power play, they're not going to run 2 D-men on the same power play most likely. It's going to be either Slavkovsky or Laine playing that extra role. And at the point, I think it's usually like because they'll have like Laine or Slavkovsky along the corners, and you have Suzuki, you have Demidov, and you saw Suzuki, Demidov, Caulfield, Hudson together in the playoffs, and it was magical.
That was just scary.
It was magical.
Just scary. Yeah, there's no way you're gonna tinker with that and put Dobson in there. Like I can't. After seeing those 5 in the playoffs, the way they played, no.
So the thing to me is, if he's not on power play 1, the value goes down, and I don't really see the value in taking him early. I think if you take him, it's as you're just looking for peripherals, and you're looking for maybe the up and if Hudson gets hurt, he's a league winner. But that's kind of it, really. Because for people to understand, like power play production is very important for a defenseman. That's where they you'll see a lot of defensemen sometimes get like 40, even 50% of their points in some cases off power play 1, right? So if Dobson's not going to be on that, it's going to ding his value substantially. And I'd honestly rather take a lot of defensemen that have power play 1, like a guy like Shea Theodore. Again, whoever ends up getting power play 1 between Harley and Heiskanen, like they're guys like that.
Even a guy like Gostisbehere, who's like ranked lower than Dobson on NHL.com's fantasy defenseman rankings. Like I'd still rather just have a guy that at least plays power play 1. Like yes, he's not a very good defenseman and he doesn't do very much apart from being on the power play, but at least having that deployment, just racking up those assists, racking up those points. I still rather just have that than Dobson.
Yeah, like they have Dobson ranked.
Puts a heavy emphasis on the peripherals. That's the only argument.
Yeah, like they have Dobson ranked 20 here. So like I'd rather have Erik Karlsson, John Carlson, Gostisbehere, McAvoy, whoever it ends up being between Jones and Ekblad, whoever it ends up being between.
It's done for you too. Your
between Dunn and Montour. I'd rather have Doughty. Like there are guys I would just rather take because I know and here's the thing with the Dunn Montour thing, one of them will for sure get power play 1. Whereas like if I'm taking Dobson, my only chance of getting power play 1 is if Hudson gets hurt. And I don't want to bet on that. Whereas like again, if I take the other guy, there's like a 50-50 chance potentially that he gets power play 1 and I'm golden, right? I don't have that same probability. Like you're basically going from a 50-50 probability if it's say Jones and Ekblad versus like a maybe 10% chance, maybe 5% that Dobson gets power play 1, and it's just not worth it to take, to be honest.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on that one.
Was there anyone else you want to talk? I know you. Again, you as the Leafs guy, if you want to go in on them, maybe any of the fantasy guys a bit.
I think for the Leafs side, it's tough because
it's just Nyes, right?
I wouldn't even say Nyes stock. Nyes has the same, like his deployment is kept the same. I'd actually almost argue it might even. I don't want to say it's down actually, but like you lose such a good line mate in Marner that. I feel like it kind of balances out to an extent. Like Nyes should have a bigger role with the team, but anytime you lose a 100-point caliber winger on your line, your production probably just doesn't. It's not going to shoot up, right? And like even with a guy like Mateus McKelly, if he's not going to get power play, like I can't even say like stock up for him, right? Mm-hmm. And because at least it seems like the Leafs are going to roll with the same power play they had last year, except maybe instead of a 5th forward, they might go Morgan Riley. But with the way Riley's been playing, I wouldn't even say stock up for him. So,
yeah, Leafs got soured on Riley massively.
I mean, to be fair, if you look at his production, can you blame me? Like,
no,
maybe one other stock up that we kind of missed that was in the I guess we didn't really talk about too much. Maybe in the Central, I would say stock.
Well, we'll get to the Central in a bit. Okay. I just wanted to know, was there anyone else in the Atlantic or not really?
No,
because the weird thing is like Tampa, Toronto, Florida kind of kept their it feels the same. Their course,
apart from like
Boston hasn't really changed anything sizable. Yeah. Detroit is kind of their core guys are their core, like that's gonna stay the same. I'm trying. Yeah. Ottawa, same thing.
Ottawa retained their guys. I think they re-signed Giroux. They kept some of the same guys. Yep.
Mm-hmm. All right, moving on to the Central, aka the Thunderdome division, as I like to call it. So there's a couple interesting ones. This hurts because to me he's one of the best two-way defensemen in the league, but fantasy's a little bit different than real life. Stock down Miro Heiskanen because there's a real chance he's not on power play 1. Because honestly, he doesn't have the shot. He doesn't have the shot Thomas Harley does. Thomas Harley's shot from the point just creates a whole new dimension to Dallas, and especially on the power play. And honestly, like Harley's a more like he's not obviously as good as Heiskanen defensively, and he doesn't have Heiskanen has some really good vision, but the raw tools that Harley brings to the power play, and like you looked at how much better the power play was when Harley was there on it, like capturing it versus Heiskanen. I think there's an argument that Heiskanen does not have power play 1, and even if he there's a chance that he does, it's like you don't want to draft him. You want to draft guys. You want to draft guys where you know they have power play 1 early, and then the other guys like Adun Montour, guys like that where you're maybe not as sure, you can kind of take a bit later. Like if I'm not sure if he's going to end up on power play 1, I don't know if I want to take him with an early round pick, and if he doesn't have power play 1. It's just not worth it. And he's also not like a big point producer to begin with, even when he had power play 1. So if he doesn't have it, well, where am I going, right?
It's funny because they have him ranked as the 22nd defenseman. And I think, like, again, I would still take a guy like John Carlson. For example, I would definitely take John Carlson over him. Probably a Charlie McAvoy over him, even. Like, I think there's a couple guys below him I'd still take over Heiskanen. And I think, on the other hand, like, if Heiskanen's stock down, then I feel like Harley's definitely stock up. Right.
Harley is going to be drafted high, though. That's the thing. I really think in most leagues, especially the way he looked after Four Nations, he's going to be
Four
drafted.
Nations definitely raised his... Well, I was going to say stock up.
He's going to be drafted high.
Right? So, yeah.
Like, there are people who are already putting him in their, like, top 15 in the league lists based on that.
Well, I was going to say, NHL.com has him at 11th right now, I think. He's
above Uyghur. Harley's going to be drafted high.
I don't agree with being above Josh Morrissey, for example, but...
I'll say this. And you know how much I'm a big Harley fan, obviously, because he's on my own team. But my thing with Harley, though, is he's going to be overdrafted just because of the upside. And again, if he ends up sticking on power play 1... like on that team, there's real potential.
I think the argument more is like if he doesn't get power play 1, then it just feels like a waste of a draft pick at that point, right?
For sure. No, but like if he breaks the camp as power play 1, he's going to be drafted high. And like you're talking about last year where he didn't even have power play 1 the whole year. Last year he had 0.64 points per game, 2.19 shots per game, 1.41 blocks per game. Like that's gonna play. And you're talking about a guy who could potentially get to 0.7. If he gets around 0.7 points per game, above 2 shots, above a block, like that easily finishes as like a top 10 defenseman in fantasy. So I see it. And then there's also and that's just if he like gets higher deployment. If he hits another level, you're talking about a potential league winner. So if he breaks the camp at power play 1, he's going to be overdrafted 100%. Like I love Harley. I don't think I'll be able to get him in most leagues, to be honest.
I was gonna joke. If you have a pick, you might just draft him high if you could. I feel like you might just take that chance.
I always take the floor guys though. Like last year, I took Bouchard. Before that, I took Yossi. It's like I always try to opt for floor in a lot of situations.
That's right, but I think there was one instance where sometimes for you it's like because he's on your team you just take him because like you'd rather.
Yeah, I'll do that occasionally.
It's more enjoyable to be able to root for the guy and have him because at least like
for sure
you don't have to root against him on certain nights because I hate that feeling when I'm playing against a guy with Matthews or like a guy that has Matthews or a guy that has Marner. I'm just at least for last year and I was like, please don't go off tonight. And then it's like it's nice seeing the Leafs win 6-1, but then realizing my opponent has Marner and he's like 4 assists and I'm like fuck.
All right. I think that's kind of it for Dallas. Moving to Colorado, stock up Gabriel Landeskog. Just being back, he's going to be power play 1. He's also one of the few guys that has the potential to be a point producer and is physical because you don't get that a lot. Like right now, like here's the real secret in fantasy hockey. hits are kind of at a premium. Like, a lot of times I find myself just punting the category because if
Or you
Timo
have that
Meyer,
random guy, yeah, you have the
Evander
random guy that just
Kane,
drafts, like Kiefer Sherwood. or
Kiefer
something
Sherwood,
like that.
yeah.
Yeah. I think he's ranked 100th, isn't he, or something like that? But
Yeah,
anyways.
but to me, if guys like Meyer, Kane, you know, Tom Wilson are off the board, I just don't I'll just punt it, usually if it's head-to-head. And I'll just opt for kind of a more scoring-oriented team. But Landeskog's one of the few guys, like, if he's healthy, and he looked healthy in the playoffs, if he's right, like, can get you 0.75, 0.8 points per game with hits, with decent shot volume. I think there's something to that. So I would have him as, like, a stock up.
Well, I was going to say, he's ranked as the 65th forward and based on the NHL.com rankings. And, like, again, like, there's a couple of guys on this list. Like, for example, like a guy like Peterka. I definitely take Landeskog over Peterka, right? Because Landeskog, like, in the past has had higher production than what Peterka's shown us so far. Plus the hits, right? There's a couple guys there. I'd even say, for example, like his own teammate in Nichushkin, right? Nichushkin always has his off-ice issues. Like, I'd rather just take... Like, I know it's funny because we talk about off-ice. Like, with Landeskog's knee, like, crapping out on him and him basically missing almost, like, 2 full years, kind of. I'd still rather have Landeskog than a guy like Nichushkin. Even though when Nichushkin plays, he does put up points. It's just his off-ice issues are even worse than Landeskog's to a certain extent.
His off-ice positions don't have a timeline. They just happen.
They just happen, exactly.
Otherwise, I feel like a lot of it's determined for the team. Like, Necas, Lehkonen will still play top-line roles. Makar is going to be the guy. I think Blackwood still be very good for them.
Yeah, so he's the starter. I don't think Wedgwood takes that from him, or if it's still Wedgwood as his backup, but don't think he takes that from Blackwood at all.
Okay, so another stock up for me, and well, I have 2 on the same team. 2 stock ups here. And they're both young players, so it kind of fits. Zeev Buyum and Jesper Wallstedt.
I was going to talk about Buyum. Well, I think for Buyum, isn't it just by default? Yes. Who else is there?
Again, I'm telling you guys, like this. If there's one theme I love to hammer, sometimes when there's nobody else in the NHL, like that's just good enough. And there's no good. Okay, for people that don't understand, and Wilds fans can speak on this, finding a guy to quarterback their power play has been the toughest job of Bill Guerin's tenure because they've gone from I swear there's been 8 different guys in the role at different points. It's been Jared Spurgeon. They had Jonas Brodin at one point. Kalen Addison, Brock Faber, Declan Chisholm. I can go through. I think Jacob Middleton played it at one point, if I remember correctly. Like, they've just played everybody at the role. And honestly, Zeev Buyum is by far the most talented guy they've had in this role. And I think, and they showed already early in the playoffs of all times, like, they let him kind of give it a go for a little bit here and there, and power play one with really sheltered minutes, except for the times they scratched him in the other games. But he's by far the most talented one, and he's the only one with real offensive upside on this roster defensively, and he's going to get the power play one role. And great. Like, that's a guy you can take as a flyer as your fourth, maybe third, fourth defenseman, and he can well surpass that value.
I think the thing with this one is, unfortunately, we're not gonna have it. We don't really have the numbers or anything to back this one up because he didn't really play any games in the regular season last year. So this is you are taking a dart throw on this one. But yeah. I think because by default there's nobody else on this team that can run the power play, he's gonna be the first guy to get that chance, and he has enough talent to probably run with it, right? And
he has the prospect pedigree. This isn't some random guy who's just getting. This is their first round pick who is who has the pedigree. Yeah. Who has a pedigree, and everyone's been touting him. And then the other ones, again, another similar guy who has pedigree and has been touted, Jesper Wallstedt. So there's a couple things here. Fleury left. Fleury's not on the team anymore. Jesper Wallstedt's the best goalie prospect in the NHL. It's him and basically, I'm trying to remember who the other one was off the top of my head. Kosa?
Do you remember? Was it same draft year or?
No, in terms of the best goalie prospects in the NHL, it's Wallstedt, and I forget who was 2. But
would you say
here's the thing.
Would Askarov count as a prospect still?
Askarov was the other one.
Oh God, we almost forgot about him.
Well, I just didn't think of him as a prospect in my head because he played last year, but I guess he didn't play enough games in theory, so sure.
I mean, he only played a couple, right? So I guess he still has it.
Yeah. So here's the thing, right? Wallstedt's not a guy you have to take early. He's a guy you can literally take with your last pick in the draft. He's a guy you can take with, like, you can take, honestly, probably get him off waivers if the Gustafsson owner doesn't take him. Here's the thing. Gustafsson, the last 2 years in Minnesota, has played 45 and 58 games, right? He's, like, and he, like, again, one of the years he was really good. One of the years he was really bad, right? And then he also had that where he came in to Minnesota off Ottawa and he was really good. But like you can get Wallstedt, you can get around maybe you get 35 to 40 games of Minnesota. And Minnesota's they were a good defensive team last year, right? And Wallstedt, again, he has the pedigree. He's the best goalie prospect in the league, and they're going to ease him into it. I think there's a chance you can get like maybe not 40, but maybe like 38, 37 games of Jesper Wallstedt.
Kind of similar to what Stolarz gave the Leafs, right? Like kind of like a 30-something games, like of not elite production, but like just really good production from the goalie position.
Yeah. And I think that's a guy you can, again, and it's the beauty and the value is, one, there's nobody else that's going to back up the Wild right now. And two, you don't have to spend a lot. Like, it's just a guy you can take at the end. Like, let's say you take 2 volume starters with your, like, let me just pull up 2 goalies you can take. Sorry, I'm just going to do this for 1 sec here. Like, let's say I take, I don't know, let's say I take Markstrom and Decord. That's realistic, right? Like, those are 2 majority starters. And maybe I want a little, or maybe I take, like, Kemper and Vejmelka, and I want some upside. Just take Wallstedt, because here's the thing. The downside is maybe you get 35 games of Minnesota. The upside is you get a potential league winner, because say Gustafsson gets hurt. Say Gustafsson's ineffective. Say Wallstedt takes the job and runs with it. They're not going to not give him the job, because he is their guy, right?
Yeah,
so
they didn't draft him in the first round to sit him on the bench. Like that's the argument
right
there.
And I think there's real potential that he, there's real potential that you could have something there. Again, a floor is 35 games behind a solid Minnesota defense. The upside is a potential league winner at the goalie position. So I would have him there. Just I think between him and Buyam, like there's a lot of upside to tap into on Minnesota there.
That's fair. I guess is there anyone else in Minnesota you want to discuss? I was gonna move on to I was gonna at least move on to the Jets, but like
yeah, you can go for it. No.
Okay, so I guess stock up for the Jets is probably Cole Perfetti. Again with the Ehlers leaving, I think he's the next one up to take that power play 1 deployment, right? So he's gonna probably be on line 2 power play 1. That's what we currently have projected on Daily Faceoff currently. I mean I think this one is more of a dart throw than anything else, because there are some question marks with Perfetti. Like he doesn't get, he doesn't shoot at least 2 times a game. Yeah. But like I would suspect that maybe if he gets more power play time and maybe if he gets more, I guess, more general ice time, like maybe those shots increase.
Mm-hmm.
Like I think currently he averaged 15 minutes time on ice last year. I'd have to think with the power play that probably shoots up closer to like maybe like 17, 18, like to a certain extent. So, I mean, this was a bit of a flyer to take a chance on. Again, the peripherals for him are not great. He hits a certain amount, but he doesn't even average a hit a game. So he doesn't really hit, doesn't really block. He's a forward, so that's kind of, I guess the blocks is not expected. The hits, he's a smaller guy, so he doesn't really hit. He doesn't really shoot that much, which is kind of an issue. So there are some, I guess, potential flaws with him. But if you're looking for a guy that's going to get power play 1 on an elite team and who might be available in like the later-ish rounds, I think this is one of those guys you want to take.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think Perfetti's, and again, there's also the real potential that like if Connor doesn't re-sign there, like, it's one of those things where it's always in the back of your head, I think, as a GM or team, where you kind of want to give the guy who might be the next guy a bit more of a role anyway. Even if you don't tell yourself that, there is that possibility for sure.
Yeah.
The other one I want to talk about, so this is kind of interesting. And I know I said there's other guys I would take over him, but I am stock up on Dylan Holloway, just because I think again we talk about hits being such a valuable resource in fantasy hockey, and like Holloway last year, you got 0.82 points per game, 2.14 hits, 2.31 shots on goal for a guy who didn't have power play one. If he has power play one and you can get that production and he can sustain that,
Yeah. I think he's currently projected for power play one right now too. I think it's he's projected for line two power play one, and he's gonna get to play with. I mean, depending on how the lines play, he'll at least get to play with another good player in like Kairu and like I think Pius Suter.
the only issue is I don't know if he holds power play one, but if he does, and that's why again there are other guys I would have him lower than, just because like a guy like I think when you look at the forward list that they have, again they're guys like. They have Holloway above guys like, I think we mentioned guys like Ehlers and stuff like that, who I just wouldn't. So not Ehlers, but like guys like Dorofeyev and Ehlers, sorry, yeah. Guys like Dorofeyev, Ehlers, where like, he's not guaranteed to have power play one, whereas I feel like those guys are. But if he does have power play one with the hits and shot production, there's real potential there.
Well, they even have him above like. I guess like they even have him above a guy we mentioned earlier, like Landeskog, right? Like Landeskog, like will give you the kind of the same-ish numbers, probably the similar-ish numbers to Holloway, but like with the surefire deployment, right? Like you have the more.
I think the argument for Holloway though is he does have a safe floor. If that like even if he doesn't have power play, like the shots and hits will let him play. And I think maybe that's why the NHL. Maybe that's why the NHL has him higher, just because like the shots and hits do play regardless. Whereas for me, I don't know. Like I get the argument for well-rounded.
There's a chance he loses the power play deployment to either Neighbors or Kairu, though. There is like a real shot. Although I think Kairu does play on the right side, so maybe if Kairu takes it from somebody else, it'd probably be from Snuggerud, maybe. But I could see, for example, Jake Neighbors taking it from Holloway potentially. Like I know Neighbors did play a decent amount of chunk of time on power play one last year in that slot.
Yeah, so. But like I think the potential, the upside is crazy. Again, I just wouldn't have him above guys like Ehlers, Dorofeyev, Marchenko, even Raymond, where like I know those guys are going to be line one power play one or line two power play one for sure, no questions asked, right?
Yeah.
All right. And then in terms of like just looking at some of the other teams, this is kind of interesting. Like because the thing with Peterka is I don't know if he breaks power play one, so I didn't really want to talk about it because it could be a stock down. I had him as
stock down actually because I think
okay.
At least what I think
it just depends.
Yeah, but I think Utah as a team has been very set with their power play for years, right? Like they've had kind of the same guys and they've maybe like rotated like one slot. So their current power play is Schmaltz, Cooley, Keller, Gunther, and Sergachev. And for the most part last year, that power play, the only spot that really changed was I think it was occasionally they had Haight instead of Cooley, but I think at one point they finally realized that Barry
Hayton's not Cooley, yeah.
And they finally realized the right thing to do is put Logan Cooley there. The problem is the only guy I could see Peterka like taking over for is maybe Schmaltz. But the problem is Schmaltz is a right-handed shot, and I think where he like on the left side, you do want a right-handed shot there because like you open up the potential for a one-timer and some I guess
also plays. Schmaltz is productive. Like, say what
Schmaltz
you want.
Is one of the most sneakily productive guys in the NHL because he always hits 60 points, but you never notice he hits 60 points. Like he's always
like he doesn't shoot a lot either, so it's like I get it, but yeah, he sneakily produces, and it's kind of the weird thing where I do agree. I don't know, and if there's one thing Andre Tourigny does is he sticks to his rotation. Like he sticks to what he's the opposite of like Dave Hackstall and John Tortorella, where they'll just throw. They'll change it up all the time. Tourigny does not do that. Like, he sticks to what it is. Whatever he has set up, he sticks to it for the longest time. It's like the exact opposite. So, if Peterka has to get power play one, it won't be, unless he breaks camp with it, they're probably just going to stick to what works. And then he'll have to break through it midway through the year. And it's like, I don't want to have to draft a guy hoping he's going to get power play one. Especially on a team with as much offensive talent as Utah has.
I think this is a tip for all those people doing fantasy is like just draft the guy that's going to be in that slot first. If he loses it, that's not really in your control, right?
Just adjust.
Yeah, just adjust there. But you never want to draft a guy and hope he gets it unless it's like a young prospect and it's like one of your last picks. Sure. That point, then you take the shot, right? But I think with where Peterka's probably going to go in the draft, at that point in the draft, you want to draft a guy that has, I don't want to say guaranteed power play one, but at least like is mostly assured power play 1 minutes.
Exactly. All right. So another stock down is, this is kind of a funny one. I think this is my last stock down. Try to figure out who the Blackhawks power play 1 defenseman is. I have, like, if anyone has
three guys that could be there, it's either Sam Rinzel, Artem Levshunov, or I forget who the last one.
Or it could be Vlado, but like it could be Vlasic, or it could be Korchinski. Like, and like who knows?
Yeah, I just and
they have a new coach too, so it's like, who really knows?
So nobody has like the leg up because there's not like a coach's preference already, because the coaches
like, at least with the forwards, I know Bedard's going to be on it. I know Teravainen, Donato. Bertuzzi's like the weird one. It could be, maybe they put Nazar. I don't know.
Yeah, Frank Nazar. I think is going to probably take it.
Yeah, but the defenseman, it's like, and these are all guys who were touted. Levshunov was taken over Demidov. Korchinski was a first round pick. I believe Rinzel was a first round. Rinzel was a first round pick as well, I believe. I think he was late first. I think he was a late first round pick. And then Vlasic
25th in 2022, yeah.
And like,
Vlasic's the guy that had power play 1 for a bit last year after Jones got traded.
Yeah, and he was drafted, like, he was a second round pick too. So it's like, you know, how is anyone going to figure this out? Like, to me, I'm not drafting any of these guys until it shakes out. Like, and whenever he shakes out, it's like either somebody has to clearly break camp with the role, or later on in the season, somebody takes a hold of it. But I'm not touching the situation right now.
I wouldn't even waiver wire any of these guys, to be honest, because it's for me. I just don't want to have to deal with the back and forth of having to check like every couple games and see who has it, and then, oh no, they changed it, now I have to pick up this guy, and oh no, they changed it again, I have to pick up this guy. I just think there's too much turmoil. I just don't want to like risk my add and drops just based off of this situation.
Yeah, and it's one of those things too where you're playing a guessing game, and it's the offensive upside on this team right now isn't worth it. And it's not the same as, like, people say, well, hey, SJ, like John Klingberg, San Jose, like, you know, Chicago's just as bad of a team. And, like, yes, but at least it's clear Klingberg's most likely going to have the role going into the season.
I would argue San Jose's offense has more upside than Chicago's currently. I will argue that too.
Sure, but the idea is, like, there's a clear defined role that he probably has. Whereas, like, if you say draft Rinzel and it's Levshunov, if you draft Levshunov and it's, you just don't know. I think,
yeah.
I know Daily Faceoff has Rinzel. I think it should be Levshunov based on where they took him. But with a new coach, with all these guys being either first or second round picks, like, who knows, man?
Also, on a totally off-topic note, is it just weird? Like, every time I look at Levshunov's picture, the fact he's balding at that age kind of scares. I don't know.
Hey! Do not hate on the bald folk, okay?
Okay, in your defense, you are 30-something. He is 20, like what? Like 22?
But, like, it is what it is, man. Genetics don't always work in our favor, bro. Like...
Okay, fair
enough. I just think if you are balding, like, you got to go the beard route because it works. But, like, again, it's not his fault he's balding at a young age, bro. Like, what do you even do about that?
I think my issue with him is that he's kept it. Like, you see the spot, like, in the center. Like, have you seen his picture? Like, have you looked at it? Like, the problem is,
hey man, if there's one thing I learned, like, Russian people give no fucks, man. I respect it, but, like, they do not. If you see Ovechkin partying, Russian dudes give no fucks, man.
Well, he's not really balding, but, like, I guess, like, his hairline just kind of, like, I don't know if you've seen the picture, but you can pull it up yourself.
I've seen it. People say he looks like a plumber's apprentice, but, like, dude, hey man, like I said,
he actually does. I'm not gonna lie, he actually.
As a bald guy, you can't control the hand you were given, man. It's reality,
but props to you for just saying fuck it. I'm gonna go full bald. Like, you know, you committed. He's kind of like still clinging on to his like. I think so. I think everybody. Okay, if any bald person or balding person wants to chime in on this, fine. Both male and female. I don't discriminate. But like, I think there's a point of where you just kind of want to keep it, and then there's a point where you tell yourself,
it's just easier if I just like take it off, and that takes time. That varies depending on the person. For me, I did it really quickly, but some people take time, right? Joe Rogan talked about this too, I think, when he was talking about, like, there's a lot, Jason Statham talked about it too. Like, a lot of bald celebrities have talked about it, and I think it's just one of those things where you kind of realize at a certain point, and then you just do it, and then you just stick with it, usually, so. Or you go the John Cena route and get those, like, transplants from Turkey. That's also a possibility, but, you know.
I didn't even know that was a thing, but okay.
People go to Turkey to get like hair transplants. It's like this real, and like they look good, I think, for the most part. So
okay, fair enough.
Was there anyone else you wanted to talk about in the Central, or?
No, I think that pretty much covers it. So I think that's pretty much our stock up and stock down, unless you have anyone else you want to mention. Like, I feel like
I think that's pretty concise. Or not concise. That was pretty was pretty in depth, I would say. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. I don't know if are we doing an Immaculate Grid this week? I just want to confirm if we are.
We can do it for the next podcast because there's just not a lot to really talk about for the next one. And then I think the next fantasy hockey podcast we do, I kind of want to just we'll start with a goalie tier list, I think.
Yep. We'll actually have a nice little... I'll have to pull the pictures up
and
again. We've done this
before. The cool thing is we can always just change it up through the year. We can kind of have it like a power... Like, where we can change the tier list maybe like a quarter. We'll have it now, and then we'll see what it looks like going into the off-season. And then maybe a quarter in the off-season, we can shuffle up and shuffle down kind of thing.
Yeah, I'll save a screenshot of it off a tier list. So I'll make...
Like
we're probably going to use tier list maker for it, but I'll just save a screenshot of it at one point. I'll just label it at one point in the year it was, and then we can see...
Like our power rankings, kind of. It's like when one of my friends, when we had his wedding, he had what we called the best man power rankings because he didn't decide on the best man till like closer to.
Really? Damn, I thought that was something you decided pretty early on.
No, we were all joking around about it because I think he wasn't sure. So we wasn't sure if it was gonna be which brother it was gonna be. So throughout the whole thing, I was like, something was going on, and I was like, oh man, you didn't open the door for him. Down a slot in the best man power rankings, stuff like that, right?
The fact that's a thing is crazy. Yeah, that's crazy, man.
But yeah, no. But yeah, we'll kind of, although I'm not going to judge goalies as harshly for not opening doors, as like, but that's something we'll definitely
judge you harshly for is how many shitty goals you let in. That's for sure.
Yeah, pretty much. But yeah, that's us signing out. That's all we got for today. I think again, did a thorough job. And it's going to be interesting to see what kind of happens as we go through camp and go through the off season with a lot of these guys. So
yeah, things could change between the new signings and I guess what unfolds in training camp. Like some of these guys may lose their deployment. Some guys may gain better deployment, and we'll try to keep you guys updated on most of those if we can, or at least the ones that are the most obvious ones to point out.
Yeah. All right, guys. For us to Tone the Crease again, I'm SJ. That's WillyDubz. And we're signing out. Later.
Peace, guys. See you guys later.